Good morning, everybody. So first and foremost, even though it's already January 9th, and I don't know when the official time to stop saying this is, but Happy New Year. Hoping that everyone has a fantastic 2026. So before we begin, I would like to respectfully acknowledge that we are located on Treaty 6 territory, a traditional gathering place for diverse Indigenous peoples, including the Cree, Blackfoot, Métis, Nakota Sioux, Iroquois, Dene, Ojibwe, Saulteaux, Anishinaabe, and many others whose histories, languages, and cultures continue to enrich our vibrant community. So we developed this Department of Medicine strategic plan. I guess it's coming on 2 years now. And at that time, all of you were so engaged and helped us to bring forward sort of what our initiatives were going to be that we were going to focus on. We know, especially right now with what's going on in our worlds with the capacity issues and so on, the day-to-day work continues. We continue doing our research, education, clinical work, administrative work, and so on. But it's important to have a direction to go towards so that we can continue to grow as a department. And that's what the strategic plan is meant to represent. So just as a reminder, of course, we have this one-page summary, which hopefully you all have front and back, to just again reiterate that we are not reinventing the wheel, that we are aligned with the Faculty of Medicine and Dentistry and our clinical partners, whatever they look like or whatever they're named in the most recent iteration. And within that, we identified a number of priorities that we want to move forward with. And so today is going to be all about updating you on those priorities. This is a long-term plan. It's not something that we are anticipating we're going to accomplish within weeks, months. We're talking, over the next 3 to 5 years. So specifically, the things we're going to address are better represented on this slide. And one of the things that you can see on this slide over to the right is it talks about measurements and constantly sort of looking at, are we achieving the things that we're trying to achieve? So today we're not going to update on everything, but specifically the research collaboration piece. We're going to have a separate grand rounds for that, that our co-associate chairs will lead. We're going to cover off the other 5 specific priorities that we've identified. So around leadership, around medical education, around the internal engagement, the external engagement, and then the whole thing around, I'll let Francois articulate it a little bit better, but around providing services to our constituents, so the administrative piece. And so we have a bit of an agenda here. So Dr. Strobe has been leading the leadership development group. So he's going to start off. And then, of course, Vijay will be talking about some of the work that's been going on in medical education that were identified as priorities. And then Adrian's going to take over to talk about the external community connections piece. And then Francois around the administrative piece, and then the newest individual to take on a formal leadership role, although she was leading this group from day one, is Karen Croker, who's going to talk about the internal engagement and collaboration piece. And so I just want to take this opportunity, in case I don't get a chance later, is to thank everybody, not just the individuals that are highlighted here and who are going to be present under each of these umbrellas, but people that have actually been participating in the working groups. And I know that they've been giving their ideas and their time and resources and so on. So just want to take this opportunity to thank them. And then hopefully we will be able to leave time for questions later. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Strobe.
Thank you, Narmin, and good morning and Happy New Year to everyone in attendance. I'm going to speak on the Working Group 1, leadership development, and I'm going to provide an update. I'd like to start by thanking my group members very much, Rayanne, Frank, Samina, Amlish, Robert, Stephanie, and Ashley, and particularly those who are in regular attendance and help out by taking on practical tasks with gathering information and helping me look through drafts of various things. And so your participation is much appreciated. I'd also like to thank the administrative and technical support that the department offers through the secretarial and sort of website building support. So Shima and Betty should be acknowledged as well. They have been extremely helpful in helping us make good progress, I think. I'm going to just provide a brief update on everything so far, because I'm conscious that not everybody might have been here when I last spoke on it at a very similar setting, although not yet back in Classroom D last year. We were taken on the task of developing a leadership development framework and also think about evaluation. And we kind of so far focused on the first of these objectives. And what we had done is to have a look around what's on offer in terms of leadership development by means of an environmental scan at the U of A, at comparable academic institutions, and you see them listed here on the right-hand side of the slide, through healthcare-related institutions or associations, AHS/successor organizations, the Canadian Medical Association and the Canadian College of Health Leaders, as well as a numerous sort of amorphous group of non-university affiliated institutions and programs. Dale Carnegie, probably the most well-known of that. John Maxwell Leadership Institute, that's maybe something else people have come across, but there's a lot of others who offer programs on leadership. So we aim to determine where are the gaps and then build and develop a leadership development framework from that. We did find an enormous wealth of opportunities for leadership training at the U of A, U Academy, the U of A Advanced Certificate in Leadership, Faculty of Medicine and Dentistry programs, Crucial Conversations, Dare to Lead, and so forth. And you'll be familiar with those names, even if you haven't partaken in any of it, because they are frequent topics of the emails sent through, say, the AHS email system. That certainly I seem to get one of those about every 3 days or so. So there's some familiarity with that. There's also an offering through the Office of Organizational Development, which is sort of not specifically focused on healthcare, but I think very well worth looking at. And then I won't bore you with sort of going over all the details of what's on here. You can read along as I speak. Various things that are available through my learning link. The CMA and the CCHL, as I said earlier, CMA Fundamentals course and the CMA Physician Leadership Institute, something that you may have come across, and I certainly have come across a number of individuals who've participated in that. And then the non-university affiliated programs, Dale Carnegie and Co., typically build around a personality of some sort. While all of these courses, when I looked at them, I thought, okay, they're all using quite promotional language. I mean, if truly they keep everything that they promise, that would be amazing. But certainly the non-university affiliated programs are on the one end of the spectrum in terms of promotional language and sometimes wild claims. And you know, they also keep some of the details not really in a very accessible way to someone just looking at it. So to some extent, you're maybe you have to do one of those courses to actually know what it's all about. And there isn't much in terms of evidence to support the success other than testimonials from participants. So you might detect a small bias there in my internal ranking of all these various opportunities. we reached out, and that's largely Stephanie's credit, who has leveraged her network of connections and has asked around what do others do? What sort of comparable institutions? Do they have a leadership development framework? Is there formal training offered or required for people who step into leadership positions? And many comparable institutions have a wealth of training options as well, internally and externally. They pretty much all offered some sort of leadership training to people going into a position of leadership, mostly internal workshops that are free of charge for the participants. And we have that as well. So much of what you saw on the previous slide is actually free of charge and is open to you at no cost anyway. So there may be an internal cost, but it's open to participants at no cost. So quite worthwhile, I think, exploring that. It's generally not mandatory for people to do this, but encouraged. Sometimes connections with the School of Business are leveraged, and sometimes it's sort of more informal, sometimes more formal, as you would expect. So we kind of ended up, and that was sort of the conclusion, I think, of the first year of this work, about which I had briefly presented already, to come up with some recommendations for consideration by the department, that leadership training should be available to present and future, i.e. aspiring leaders, even without a firm plan to take on a particular leadership role. If someone has in mind to add that leadership component to their career in a meaningful way, they would benefit from the training and then be better equipped to take advantage of opportunities as they may arise. That access to leadership training should be available to those in formal as well as informal positions of leadership. So a lot of leadership and a lot of mentorship happens without formal roles. That leadership training, this is sort of the occupational physician in me coming out and saying, this is work and it should be counted as work and it should be undertaken during working hours. That's not a hobby. It's not spare time activity. People may have commitments also that stand in the way of participating outside of regular working hours. If you have to drop off a kid at daycare, then that's pretty much something you have to do every day. So if the course starts at 7:30 in the morning, it's not great. Leadership should be available to physicians and non-physician academic staff members, as well as the administrative staff in the department, because they all face leadership challenges. And we thought long and hard about whether we need to have a new program, but decided, there's so much out there. We recommend leveraging existing programs rather than developing something new. Some of the more aspirational aims that the department should cover the cost of leadership training for its members, or we'll touch briefly on that in a moment, that the time spent on leadership training, as I said, should be recognized as work time, and if possible, considered when it comes time to determining the merit increments. And there was also some thought given to some sort of leadership mentorship program where people who are newly appointed maybe team up with others who are in a comparable role and have been in that for a while. And that could happen formally or informally. So much work is ongoing, and I thought about showing you screenshots of various things in development, but I sort of shied away from that because it may yet look quite different. As much of that is sort of internal working group effort that has yet to be finalized to a point where it's shared with the department leadership, and then input would be received and it will be further refined. So I'll provide you a verbal summary. We are working on an inventory of leadership training opportunities, and as I said, some available for free. So that's actually a lot. And this turned out to be a task that was a little bit more laborious than I thought, because I thought it's just copy and paste, put in some links, and I don't even build websites, but Betty is fantastic at it. So we tried that, and then I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, hang on. That sounds awfully promotional, and so we're thinking about ways of maybe being a little more objective than at least some of the people who offer those courses, who may look at it through I don't know, sort of a very enthusiastic and self-assured way, and it may be take the form of just putting some things in quotation marks if we think that is something that organizers say about the course, but we don't necessarily have a way of proving that is actually so. Support for leadership training opportunities that charges fees. And I guess that's sort of the stumbling block for taking that on. Some very helpful conversation with Narmin back and forth and ongoing about how to best do that. People who are tenured or tenure track have a professional expense reimbursement allotment every year. I think it's $1,400 or so. I use mine every year, but not everyone does. Some people sort of let that build up, and there's an enormous amount of money in that pot because people don't realize they have that, or they knew once when they were onboarded, but there was so much to take in that they've forgotten about it. So use that, and actually in discussing that with Narmin, we thought, we're going to make people use that. We're not going to provide funding if people are not utilizing the university offered dollars that are available to them on an annual basis. So people will be expected to use their PER. If you're a clinical faculty member and you don't have that, don't worry. That doesn't apply to you, obviously. You don't have it. Then I understand, and I hope that's still true, that there are additional funds that will be allocated to supporting people in undertaking leadership training, and that there will be we're working on that as well. That's also largely complete, but maybe need a few more tweaks. That's going to be an online application form to ask for the additional support, and we're thinking as well that there'll be an impartial, as much as that's possible, adjudication process by two people who look at maybe a little bit of text, 500 words or so, where people say why they want to do it and what they want to do, how it helps them, how does it help the department, and they attach a CV as well, and then we'll look at that and we'll rank that, and maybe depending on availability of funds, then money might be dished out for that. So there's going to be a website that is sort of a landing page for both the inventory, which is, I think, maybe that will actually have the greater impact because people can just go and seek out opportunities and then sort of, if there's no additional costs, start them at any time. But also for the sort of more structured, more in-depth programs, that there'll be funds to support that, so people don't have to be out of pocket, and that they have a single go-to place from where both of these, the inventory and the application form, will be linked. And then there likely will be times at the year where that's open for people to put forward an interest, and then it might close again, and applications are adjudicated and ranked, and then hopefully many people will be successful. So that's kind of the idea in my mind and in the group's mind as it is currently playing out, with us being pretty close, but not at the finishing line in terms of both the inventory and the application form. And there's more internal discussions and approval before it'll be ultimately put together. So that's my bit. I'm going to advance the slide to working group 3, and I'll hand it over to Vijay.
Thank you, Sebastian. So I'm pleased to present on behalf of our working group the goal to increase dissemination of medical education innovations. So it's not listed on the slide, but I do have some trusted advisors, sort of what I call my brain trust. Stephen Cates, who's now moved away, Anna Oswald, Penny Smythe, as well as Jamie Yu, and been very lucky with Denise Richardson coming, has joined that group. And so these are people that has really helped move a lot of this work along after we moved on from the working group. So I did want to make sure they were acknowledged as well. So what were the initiatives we did to increase medical education scholarship? Well, first and foremost, what we heard constantly is we had a lot of clinician educators who had ideas, even had the skills, just didn't have the time. And when you have larger grants, you often budget in for a research assistant, but a lot of medical education work is just $10 coffee cards to complete a student to fill in a survey. And we don't necessarily need large budgets, but we do need the research assistant support. So that was the very first priority, was to hire an RA. We did want to set up a grant to support projects that did need a little bit more money. And another key point is to develop a medical education community of practice. It's well established in the literature and all sort of collaborative spaces that having a community of practice can really move things along. And overall, of course, the goal was to increase the output of medical education scholarship. So So you would have hopefully seen a short video about our medical education research assistant from before the winter break. Ashley is our 12-hour per week RA, and Ashley can help with literature reviews, ethics submissions, study designs, grant proposals, data analysis, as well as preparing conference submissions, manuscript writing. We have a very clear agreement with her. If she fulfills the role of an author, she will be an author on papers, but she doesn't have to be. So it depends on what the researcher is needing. And so we've overall had 10 of our busy clinician educators supported in their work. A lot of this stuff wouldn't have even gotten off the ground without Ashley, so huge kudos to her. That's her email there, dommira at ualberta.ca. In terms of the grants, we did have with our first call last September, I believe it was, our DOM Scholarship in Medical Education, or SIGN grant. It was up to $20,000. We had 6 recipients to date. And what we've actually done, as of the last couple of months, is added an extension. When we've had projects that have been doing really well, but maybe have hit a hurdle or are growing, like some becoming more national, we have an option to actually extend it up to another $20,000. But we didn't feel it was comfortable to have that large amount to start. And we have this is brand new, and you would have hopefully seen an advertisement about this before the break, DOM SIGN mini grant, up to $5,000, because sometimes you just need a little bit of money for those incentives. We are wrestling with supporting open access fees for the exact same reason Sebastian talked about the leadership course. And so we are still working on, we have a bit of terms of reference with the full application process, but there are some circumstances where you've done good work, you've tried to publish in non-open access journals, you're hitting a wall, you find a journal that is really appropriate, you don't have PER, we can have a conversation about that. In terms of our meta community practice, I mean, all of this gets me excited, but this is probably the one that gets me the most excited. It's really sort of discussing ideas for new projects, feedback around projects and process, support those who are already doing meta scholarship to move these projects along. I think all of us around the table could say we had at least one, if not multiple things that were just like not moving. And really a huge goal of this is for those who haven't done much meta scholarship to get started, because sometimes you don't even know where to begin. So this were pictures from our first meeting when we first came together, sort of some brainstorming and sharing of ideas. And then this is of our more recent meeting. And so the format that we've decided on is we're having alternating meetings that'll be quarterly, just starting this year, where one meeting will be brainstorming, sort of sharing ideas, what are the projects on the way, and the next meeting would be a presentation of ideas. And this could be something you've just already presented at a conference, because this happens all the time. Sometimes you can't get to that conference, but the person down the hall is doing great work. And so that is what we're doing at the moment. So to date, our output is sort of supporting ethics approvals. We've had actually someone being successful at a national grant, 2 papers published, and that might sound low, but again, we just started. Like in the first year, these are people who are just starting their ideas and whatnot, and 4 conference presentations supported. But we have lots of potential with the stuff that we have. And so I said this last year, I think when I spoke, I've heard for years, and I personally myself have lots of excuses why I'm not getting my medical education work out there. We've done a pretty good job of addressing all of those. So if you're stuck, you have ideas, please come talk to me, come talk to Ashley. We want to help move you forward. And I'll pass it on to Adrian.
Thank you. I too would like to extend thanks to the members of the working group that has taken these things forward over the last year. A short recap and then an update on our main activities from last year, and then a call for thoughts and proposals about taking things forwards. So, as you remember last year, we talked about what on earth would we want to engage with the community for. We're quite happy. We're in an ivory tower. There's that out there. They come and do stuff, and we do stuff to them, and off they go until they come back next time. But they should know what we do, shouldn't they? We're of great value to the community. That's established. And indeed, the potential benefits were identified as being visibility. And we felt that we weren't too visible. And particularly Andrea said, it's all when somebody represents us, it's always the University of Alberta or the Faculty of Medicine Dentistry, never the Department of Medicine. And our signature block, we're 5th in 0.6 font. We need to do something about that. We need to do something about brand awareness. It may have benefits in terms of research funding, advocacy for the people for whom we serve, something about our reputation and building trust, and again, understanding exactly what the members of the Department of Medicine do. There were barriers, of course, and Sebastian again is advocate of some of those time, dedicated resources, conflicting priorities, this lack of engagement, and certainly the workload. Everyone's working pretty hard as it is, and lack of recognition, and what motivates people to do these things. And I always think that altruism is much more common than it perhaps is, and always overestimate that. So we came up with this matrixized model, recognizing that the external community was really multi-sectoral. And we have a couple of horizontals, and there's been action there, some of which you will be aware and we'll talk about in a second. So the group wanted to prioritize, firstly, patient and public engagement out of all of those sectors. And this is where we've concentrated over the first year. But we recognize we would need both human and financial resources, commitment and consideration of recognition of activities. We haven't got there yet. An expert speaker panel, those of us that will be willing to engage with the media when there's something exciting, or Danielle Smith said something completely ridiculous, and we want to get someone out there to talk about it. That would be really useful. But of course, people are often very chary about those. So here we go. Communications, public relations, the chair was very supportive, and we now have Lenora as our official recognised foghorn, who's out there in social media, continually putting out stuff that we are doing, and that's, I think, really useful. And likewise, last year, in around, I think, October, November, she did the first webinar on communication and media skills to allow those of us with an interest to get good at what we do and to avoid answering direct questions, much like the Dean. But there we are. So our priority activity was the public. You may have recognised that we've spent a lot of time, and really grateful for the Andrea and Erin and the team, and certainly Betty, who reined in my enthusiasm about why the hell aren't we publicising this 6 months early? And I realised that I got it wrong, and she knows exactly what she's doing. We had an extensive media engagement and a good pickup locally of this activity, which ran, I think, very successfully, although not the best attended event that we might have done, but a first stab. So the planned community health fair went ahead. We've got Janice here talking about the importance of trustworthy sources of information where we are surrounded by misinformation and misdirection. There was extensive publicity, about 45 community members, and extremely well evaluated. In fact, Andrew said this is the best event we've ever done, but probably the most poorly attended. And that was a bit of a shame. But the publicity campaign really worked. The people that came had a huge amount of sources where they had heard about this event, as you can see by the dreadful pie chart at the bottom. So we had a post hoc debrief. We think we need a member of the public on our advisory board. We want to conduct a needs assessment event, inviting community members along. We certainly used Bernard Snell Hall, probably a mistake because of where it is in its accessibility. We want to widen our publicity, and we would like to do the same thing again this year in May, as being a better time, both temporarily and weather-wise. But building a brand is more than just an annual event, as I'm sure you're aware. And apart from Leonora's excellent outpourings in social media, we need to perhaps think about something else and other ways we can do that and help us establish trust. A lot of us in the department are already involved in these kind of things in a very ad hoc way, in line with our own personal interest, as we're well aware. So we perhaps might think about how we might purposefully engage with patient representative organisations across the department and have some kind of coordinated approach. And then maybe we were in a position to approach potential donor organisations. So we have another meeting planned. We will be doing some ongoing work, and we'd like really to address what might motivate members of the department generally, other than altruism, to come and present and do some work in this programme of work. We are planning another event, and I'll be reaching out to division directors to dob people in to come up and present public education for next year. So thank you.
So happy to present on behalf of Working Group 5, the Administrative Services Expectations Working Group. Dr. Karen Doucette is the chair of this group, and the members are myself, Dr. Francis Carr, Dr. Mawa Ghosh, Dr. Robert Niadecki, and Miss Ashley Kaisers. I'd like to thank them all for all of their work that we've undertaken. And I will note that the objectives for this working group are to develop department-wide shared expectations for the administrative services that are provided to the faculty members in their day-to-day work, and continuous and ongoing improvement in those areas as we proceed. I will note that in our meetings, we've had lots of great discussion. Unfortunately, we've sometimes gotten a little bit down into the weeds, where we're talking about very specific things like generic emails, this, that, and the other. So it has been a little bit difficult in terms of developing these shared standards. But I think based on some more recent conversations that the committee has had, and also with Dr. Kassam, we've been able to refocus a little bit more, and we'll have some tangible outputs for the department. So at this point, the outputs that we have created are updated information. And again, thank you, Betty, and the communications team with respect to that. In terms of the website on the Department of Medicine Administrative Services tab. And we do have as well, and I think this is actually less work from the working group and more from Rayanne and a few others in the DPS group. We do have some information, and there's a slide of this, but I just wanted to hold it up again, simply because this is a very succinct and complete version of who to contact for what services that you may require. So if faculty members are not sure where to go, they can go to the website. They can also, hopefully they have one of these. If you don't, you can always obtain one of these at the chair's office or on the 5th floor from the DPS group. And your DAS or EA may have some of these still available. If they don't, we'll make sure that those are made available to everyone. The other thing that we also did was we held 3 sessions that were drop-in sessions for individuals to come and ask questions about the services that are provided by the department. Unfortunately, again, very well organized and set up, but rather poorly attended. I think in total, there were about 12 individuals over the total of 6 hours that we had available for those sessions. So this is just a quick view of where the tab is on the Department of Medicine website for the admin services pieces, as it lists all the various areas that we currently have within administrative services. And this again is just a, I guess, screenshot of where you can obtain various services from the admin group within the department. So I'm sure that these slides will be circulated. So even if you don't have a hard copy of this, it'll be available through these slides as well. So in terms of our next steps and the refocus of the working group, these are the expected outcomes that we will develop over the next period of time. So the service expectations document, we're actually going to have something that's going to be tangible, that's going to be outlining overarching expectations, not just of the administrative group, but also of faculty members and individuals utilizing those services. And we will integrate this with the DOM Working with Respect resources that Dr. Croker and her working group have been working on, and just to ensure there's full alignment amongst the different initiatives from the different working groups as well. And then what we are planning on doing is transitioning from the working group to actually having a quality improvement team, whereby this will be much more formal. It will be inclusive of additional administrative individuals so that we can talk specifics. This is where we will start getting into some of the weeds of the processes and the various activities that are undertaken to support the faculty members. And so that will be developed over time. The working group's purpose in this area is to basically identify a set of terms of reference and potentially look at the types of individuals that should be a part of this group. So very short and quick and sweet. I know it's a huge topic and you probably have many questions, but we'll get to those after Dr. Croker presents. Thank you very much.
Happy New Year, everyone. And so I decided to wear my nice FOMD sweatshirt today because I thought this is the right place to wear it. So first I want to thank our working group that we've had a number of discussions over the past year. We've also consulted with other wellness leaders across the faculty. And so people have been really helpful in the work we've been doing. So we're basically working on engagement and collaboration culture. And so I think changing culture is probably the most challenging thing to do sometimes, because culture exists because somebody wants it to be that way. And so we do want to work on that. And so basically we want to work on this because it shapes what we do every day. And it's really important actually for engagement, retention, and sustainability. And so one of the things they say is that, retirement shouldn't be your plan to get wellness at work. You should try to get wellness at work, not without a plan for retirement. And then we're working on that strategy. And so this is the infographic that we've developed over the past year that we need to we don't have it laminated yet, but maybe we will. But we kind of wanted to focus a little bit on this. So hopefully it's not too busy, but because we really wanted to talk about how we develop culture in terms of innovation and research, collaboration, mentorship, professional development, transparency, and leadership. And these are all done through excellence, engagement, community, relationships, kindness, purpose-driven, resilience and adaptability, and curiosity. And so I think we really want this to be in ultimately belonging and inclusion, because we all part of this and we want people to belong. We need people to be well, and we want people to feel safe. And so, because this is where people spend a lot of their working hours, spending their time. And so that culture where we want to be the best place to work. And so I remember Dr. Fedoruk used to say, I have the best job in the world, but I think part of it was because you create an environment where this is the best place to be. And so we really do want to work on that. That being said, so then I'm going to say through this work and through some of the collaborations we've done with Penny Smythe from her role in professionalism office, Mel Lewis, who's the director of wellness for the faculty, we talked about this role of the director of wellness. And so this is a new role that I've been working with Narmin to develop. And so this is a strategic and system based, and it's looking on, once again, culture, retention, and sustainability. And so we're going to start meeting with other wellness people within the faculty. And so there's going to be a working group. We're working with PEDS and the faculty and other groups that have their own wellness leads to kind of figure out how we can do this and then look at a data-informed approach. And so the first thing, even though retirement shouldn't be your strategy shouldn't be your strategy for wellness, we do have a transitions in medicine series group that we're working on. And so first session is actually coming up in less than a month. So Wednesday, February 4th, it's about a retirement career transition into retirement. And so this, I think we're really looking forward to this. It'll be a 2-hour lunch and learn. I think already 25 people have signed up, so we're really excited about that. Not that we're going to lose people, but I think you should be planning for retirement long before you actually retire. And so this is a little bit to work on that. And there'll be more sessions throughout the year to help you with this, because I think there's other transitions. There's a transition from being a junior faculty member to in mid-career, and then the transition from mid-career to senior faculty. And so I think there's lots of ways that we can support this development. And so the one thing to know is that I do believe that culture starts at the top. And so developing stuff with leadership is actually really the most important work. Working on being the culture and this engagement and collaboration. We do have a web page. And so if you want to scan the QR code, you can see that if you haven't seen it already. And so the last thing we want to know is, how are we being successful? So what are the benchmarks that we're going to go for? And so I'm going to tell you the last time we actually did a satisfaction survey with the Department of Medicine was in 2017. And so we want to actually do this again. So we're going to be working again to probably a modified one. It was a pretty long survey. And so we basically want to tailor this and have metrics that we can measure. I think that different divisions within the faculty are probably going to have different issues, because I think depending on maybe your workforce planning, maybe depending on the types of work you do. And so we're hoping to help support each division and also to help know what the hot points are in their group. So watch for that. And then what this means is that leadership is really about, we have to model the right behaviors. We have to promote initiatives. And so I think some of the people coming to our retirement seminar are the division directors, which want to support other members in their faculty. And then we want to support that measurement, to have ongoing measurement to see how we're doing in terms of helping improve this place to be the best place to work. And so we're going to continue to work with our engagement and collaboration culture and to share updates through our webpage. And so if you have any suggestions on how to make culture better or to make this workplace the best place we can be, you can always reach out to me. Thanks.
Those are all the slides, right? Yeah. We wanted to leave lots and lots of time for questions because as you can see, there's been a lot of work done, and I'm absolutely so grateful to the as I said, all the working group leaders and members, and we've come a long way from a year ago. And you know, this is exactly what you want to see in a strategic plan, that there's ongoing forward direction, leaving a legacy for the department, which is what I'm seeing here. So, all righty, Wendy.
I'm really impressed. I think this has been tremendous work, and as you alluded to, it's amazing. I also have a question for everyone, but my first question was for the first presentation. There's a plethora, as you say, every 3 days you get an email, and you talked about having an inventory. Are you gonna have a navigation? Because I think when you're particularly starting out in the mid-career, it's like, yeah, I actually do want to do leadership. But given the plethora of courses, do you have maybe trained the mentors about how to navigate, how to advise people which courses, in what way should you do them? Because having taken random courses, you go to a course and say, okay, I already did that. Or this isn't actually meeting my needs for where I'm going. So the navigation is really important because you don't want people taking willy-nilly a few courses and then it's getting turned off.
Yeah. Sebastian, I don't know if people online will be able to hear you unless you.
Yeah, they want to.
Yeah.
Ready again at the mic. Thanks for the question. I'll just, maybe for people online who may not have heard what you said, I'll just give a 30-second summary. The question was about the multitude of opportunities for leadership training and how one goes about choosing what is right for oneself and the department, I suppose, because that's always serving the institution is the thought at the back of my mind. I think it's an interesting challenge because it comes back to what I said earlier. If you look at what the various providers of leadership and management training tell you they offer their own description of what their course does, you would walk away with the impression that everyone should be doing that particular offering and that it's helpful no matter what you want to do, and it'll make you learn who you are, and to some extent that may well be true, but it's a challenge to get to what extent is that true, to what extent is it promotional, to what extent is that which is offered actually helpful to me in my journey at this point. So we're going through the description of the courses as they present themselves, and we're trying to distill the objective essence of it, and that's maybe an impossible task, but we don't want to take just the often promotional language and copy that one-to-one and say this is our objective assessment of it. So we will have, the inventory will be structured by so that you can find something that fits your category, and it'll have information about where to read more about the particular offering and sort of is it for cost and whatnot, and how much of a time commitment is it, and what is the target audience. I mean, something within the faculty will have a healthcare lens and will have a physician audience by and large. Even for people who are not physicians who partake in it, they're somehow involved in the Department of Medicine, and so they have a sort of a shared background and if they don't have that when they join, they'll get that over time. I think that's a start, but that doesn't completely guard against you signing up for something and then thinking, oh my goodness, I could have learned that in kindergarten. This is all so self-evident, and this is all so fluffy, and I've spent 2 hours listening to that and I'm none the wiser. So that is a real danger, and we don't want people to waste their time. So I think in due course, once this initiative has been running for a while, it would be good to ask people to provide some feedback, and especially those who've who got funding. I mean, if you get funding, people who do research know this, you got to write a report or several or quarterly. But we're not going to ask quarterly. But if we give funding to people, and by we, that's sort of the royal we, lovely Narmin. We're going to expect that they at least tell us how it was and whether it was useful or not. And that maybe we can incorporate that in ranking or otherwise outlining those opportunities that are truly beneficial. And then the third point I want to mention is that what is self-evident and fluff and completely unnecessary to one person may actually be a game changer to another who hadn't thought about it in that way and who may not have a sort of innate inclination to lead, but may want to do it because that's where their career leads them, and they recognize they're not a people person, but they have to be for this, so they got to have some additional training. And for some people, that might be how to talk to groups of others and how to give presentations and how to, come to grand rounds and talk. For some, that's natural. For others, it's not. And so it really depends on who you are. And to some extent, what's your background? Where are you in your career journey? But also, what sort of personality are you and what skills do you already have? And what skills do you need to bring? So it's an attempt at answering your question, which hopefully gives some pointers as to how I would navigate that. I think it still requires a little bit of research on behalf of the person who wants to take up the opportunity to think, is this a good use of my time? And I'm going to get a credential for it, and that might be helpful, but am I actually going to learn something? So that's how I would navigate.
Yeah, and of course, particularly for junior, mid-career folks, you can still, there are mentors that you can use to help navigate that sort of an inventory, which I'm looking forward to have. Like I get thrown all the time to me, I'd like to do Gold College. Well, Gold College doesn't exist anymore. It's called U Academy. And so we actually have, I think, 3 individuals this year that got accepted into, because a lot of these things, yes, they might be no fee charged, but you do have to qualify and apply and all the rest of it. Yeah, and it's not easy to get into those things. So I need to know, when there's folks that are interested. And so speaking to the division directors, usually I'll reach out to them and say, hey, do you have somebody that we should be promoting for these things? And then, that piece about taking something away. I mean, even across the country, the chairs of medicine, we always, when we get together a couple times a year, we'll have one little, sort of leadership training type seminar or presentation or whatever. And I find no matter how many times, there's always a pearl that you can take away, right? And so, I think doing that internal sort of looking at, okay, what could I benefit from the most is very helpful with somebody else. So, Peter, yeah, hi.
Thanks for everybody. Just very random comments. First, Sebastian, just that question about sort of a submission of your 500-word proposal. I think I would suggest maybe think about a more sort of interactive dialogue. So maybe much briefer. Otherwise, you get 500 words of chat GPT. We've had applications where we see the application, we think we've got the idea, but I've got questions. And so we actually have a one-on-one dialogue with the applicant for the grant, for example, because it's often easy to reject a grant because of what people haven't said, which actually maybe have thought about it, but haven't written it down. So that might be a sort of formative way to sort of assess both the requests and the needs and special relevant. So
yeah, and of course also looking at the context, right? So there might be multiple individuals wanting to take advantage of things, but it might be that this year, with the limited, we might only be able to support 1 or 2 with immediate needs, and then, sort of down the line. So agreed.
The open access thing for the education. I think we've got a lot of journals that we've now got access through Alberta to open access. To probably the need for that should be smaller than before. And again, if it's not, maybe quite big indeed.
And that's part of,
You get a discount.
I just mentioned it's about the
so it's a question with the open access. So I've got a paper right now that the probably best target journal based on the area of interest is not one of U of A's. And part of the process will be, if I were to apply to this and people adjudicating it would come back to me and say, have you thought of this? And that's what we want. We want it to be a conversation. So probably someone just says, hey, I found a journal that's $10,000 open access. Go, whoa, no way. Let's talk. And so that's part of what it'll be. Is my goal is to have it be a conversation starter, having our group support the people to be like, is this really the right target? And that sort of thing. Yeah.
Last.
Yeah.
Just so I think the question for the challenge is the alignment with FOMD's efforts here, Central's effort in terms of the kind of community engagement, because even institutes are working through these same things. But then the thing about a target audience for the department, which is so broad, individuals with diseases may tend to align with their disease and so again, don't have an answer for you, but I then appreciate that.
No, that's an excellent point. And I think it was before you came in, we talked about that, when we developed this plan, we wanted to make sure we were aligned with the faculty, the institution, and our clinical partners as well, right? And that's important. I mean, one of the things we talked about a little bit with, for example, the community fair is we actually had primary care there as well, because there were a lot of issues that were, across. Yes, we have a very broad department, and that I have to say that is the thing that we struggle with the most within our department, is defining what is the Department of Medicine, right? And then you blow it up even further. What's non-surgical, not pediatric, right? It's easier to define what we're not, but being a bit more inclusive, I think we've got to think about how we can do that. I saw another hand here. I think it was Ross, right? Or
yeah, I like the idea of navigation thing, but that only works if you're conscious of your needs. And what about the needs that you have, maybe that you don't know about? I don't have an answer to that, but just that's probably the only way to do it, I would guess. But then the mentors need to know how to navigate where you get that. You may not know that you don't have people skills.
I mean, I will, I'll acknowledge I'm not a very smart person, but every time I do one of these courses, I take something away that I hadn't had insight into. And, even those painful personality inventories that constantly change, we all know we do change on that spectrum. I find that they are helpful, but you do want to be conscious of your time, right? And what you're investing in. And I think that's maybe where we need to be more efficient. Yeah.
So you get the pearls, but then you create a beautiful necklace.
Yeah. Or have the base to start off with. Agreed. Yeah. Wendy.
So for Dr. And this may be obvious, but you talked about wellness through the transitions of career. And looking at what I'm sensitive to now is seeing people are having transitions in life. And that while there's supports for individual challenges, a child with an illness, divorce, parental, sandwich generation people, there's individual supports that are available. But as part of the wellness going to be creating a community that says these are normal things. And we have strategies to help you balance the work and life transitions.
It's an easy question.
I think that, our wellness group is it's a new part. And I think this is actually great feedback for us. Because I do think that actually, obviously, if you're not well at home, it's hard to be well at work and vice versa. And so often the people that are struggling at work actually are having some sort of challenge at home. And so I think that's one of the things we probably need to be mindful about how we bring this into our transition, because I think it's true. There's going to be somebody else who's had the same experience, an unwell child or parents that are unwell or whatever the challenge that you're going through divorce. And so I think there's lots of kind of good, positive and negative challenges, even like how do you navigate an academic career as a new mom kind of thing. And so I think new parent, I don't know. I would only be a mom, yeah.
Or grandparent for some of us, right? All right. And there's no questions online. And so with that, I hope, you sort of have an idea of what we've been working on, where things are going, and you obviously have the names of the leads, so please don't hesitate to reach out. We are trying to make all this information more accessible online and, through the various websites. If you look under the bigger headings, you'll hopefully find them. And we have lots of work to do still, so we welcome input, welcome individuals participating and giving feedback. So on behalf of the department, again, thank you so much.